Well, there's three really that we see. The first is cloud computing. And some have equated the concept of cloud computing as gracefully giving up control while maintaining accountability. So the IT manager, the network administrator, is now dealing with an infrastructure that is no longer under his or her direct control. So it adds new challenges, new security risks, potentially new costs, but there is a potential also for a cost benefit. So a lot of companies, particularly larger companies, are looking at moving to the cloud primarily to reduce CapEx costs and move more to an OpEx type of model. Smaller companies look at cloud computing as an opportunity to rapidly expand their growth. It's very scalable and can, when you're taking advantage of shared resources, your ability to get applications up and running faster is potentially improved. The second is sort of an offshoot of this move to cloud computing, and that is an increased need for process automation, taking the human element and really minimizing the impact of humans being involved in our infrastructure. So adding that level of automation in any form has clear benefit. So now the IT teams can need to be able to spend their time solving problems rather than trying to diagnose where these problems may have occurred. And the third trend that we see, a very popular topic among IT professionals, is this concept of data center infrastructure management. Now, intelligent infrastructure is a similar tool or similar concept, but it typically comes at it from the IT world. And solutions have been available in the market for 10, 12 years now. This concept of DCIM comes at it from the power and cooling perspective. So really trying to leverage all of the information that is available from the data center and bring it up to where it can be gathered and analyzed, potentially used for predictive models, and enable the IT manager to make informed, educated decisions based on reality, based on true data. Well, I think in response to the trends that we just discussed, as an IT manager gives up control, there's some data centers are going to get substantially larger, potentially in a hosted environment. Those people that are providing services to other companies, network services, software as a service, infrastructure as a service. So those environments will continue this relentless pace to higher and higher speeds. So the larger data centers are going to become much more complex with higher speeds in the backbone, 40 gig Ethernet, 100 gigabit Ethernet. These standards are available, equipment is available now. So the data center manager for these typically larger installations need to consider not just what their needs are today or 5 years from now, potentially 10 years from now, 20 years from now, when that infrastructure is going to be put under challenges that are very difficult to even conceive of. So for these larger installations, it's important that the network itself, the infrastructure, be designed and implemented to allow a great measure of flexibility so they can plan for both the higher speeds, but be able to have a sensible migration path, a graceful migration path from 10 gig to 40 gig and 100 gig. These architectures are available, the equipment is available, it just needs to be implemented in a sensible fashion. As for those companies that are taking advantage of these services that may be in these larger data centers, so now their infrastructure is actually getting smaller in comparison. Though, now they have a potential for remote environment, whether it's a private cloud or a public cloud, either in their own facilities or around at a hosted site. Now the need is there to, you've given up control, there's additional security risk, so you need to try to get some of that back. And there are solutions available that can intelligently contribute to solving that problem. From a solution perspective, we've had an intelligent solution in the market for a dozen years. Really been on the forefront of this technology, promoting it in the market, and it's really now beginning to find wider acceptance in all markets around the world. So the solution itself is comprised of three main components. A measure of intelligence at the panel level itself that provides sensing technology, guidance to the work order if you're simply trying to find the other end of a patch cord. That's very easily done. The second component is provides much more information at the rack level, and that's the controller. We've just launched a new version of that. It's a beautiful, about 4-inch, maybe the size of an iPhone 5 screen. It's a touch screen, color, and it provides a very clear graphical picture to the technician or whoever might need the information at the site as to what is connected all the way from the service that's being provided at the switch, all the way through the entire infrastructure, all the cross connects, out to the final destination and to the active device that's on the other end of that channel. And the third piece, which really brings the power to the solution, is the software, System Manager 7. And we've had this solution out. We've continued to add features that makes it a very powerful tool to implement in your infrastructure as part of your process. Now, moving forward, intelligent infrastructure has an opportunity around the third trend that we discussed, which was DCIM. Intelligent infrastructure can gather a host of information from the IT perspective and feed it into that DCIM solution that is doing the data gathering, the analytics, and the forward-looking visualization. Well, every IT manager, particularly in a data center environment, is concerned about power and cooling. And DCIM tools in general come at the problems and helping to drive efficiencies, monitor what's going on in the data center environment by talking and pulling data out of the equipment that's available in the installation. So for an IT manager, he's now got a wealth of data at his disposal. So a true DCIM tool should really open up all that data from any source that it's available, essentially acting as the hub for that data. Pull it in, make sense of it, and analyze that data, be able to, it's sort of like big data, if you will, for the data center itself and for the data center manager. So as all this data becomes available and freed up, there's decisions that can be made, informed decisions as to looking at different scenarios, doing scenario analysis to be able to plan and look at what happens to my infrastructure if I need to make a change that is associated with power and cooling. I think clearly the objective of any provider that's working on a DCIM tool should be to open that framework, open up the data, and be able to provide data in both directions. So not just pull data from other systems and make decisions on it, but also provide data to other systems, and certainly to the management team itself, but to other software packages. So our philosophy moving forward, I really feel, is going to be about enabling that data to be socialized in any environment. It's actually it's a challenge. It's a difficult thing because intelligent infrastructure, unless you've made that decision up front, historically, unless you made that decision up front while you were initially doing your project, it's virtually impossible to migrate to a truly intelligent infrastructure. And in response to that, we recognized that several years ago. And with a very creative design, we essentially allowed the customer to put in a base level infrastructure, a very high performing, high quality infrastructure, but then at a later date, be able to migrate that seamlessly and with no network downtime to an intelligent infrastructure. So it was a real wholesale change within the industry because it's very difficult when you have a project schedule hanging over your head to decide, to make that decision that intelligent infrastructure is right for you. And because it touches so many stakeholders within the organization, from security to LAN, SAN, IT. So it's very difficult to get all those stakeholders around the table and make that decision. Now DCIM, on the other hand, that is a technology that can be applied as an overlay to an existing infrastructure. So it's typically software only. Some solutions have some content of hardware associated with it, but as a software only, it allows you to essentially represent what you already have and then start to take advantage of the power of the tool. First off, try to look forward as far as possible, and realize that's probably the biggest challenge, to extrapolate what your needs are going to be years from now. We have not just generations of equipment that are going to be cycled out every 3 to 5 years. We've also got new generations of workers that are going to be coming into our environments, and they're going to have different expectations than your workers do today. So being able to plan not just for bandwidth, but for flexibility of architecture, to allow you to move in different directions as technologies change. We can't predict which particular technology is going to win in the long run. So try to plan for as much flexibility in your architecture as you can manage. And in terms of adding intelligence, it's definitely something that should be considered. And actually, to that end, the standards bodies have defined and provide guidance as to when a company should consider moving to an intelligent infrastructure. It's actually in the documents in TIA 606B, it's referred to as automated infrastructure management. And they provide guidance in terms of when you should consider moving to intelligence. And really those are comprised of 3 things. Complexity of your network. So the more complex your network, the more benefit you're going to have from both process automation, visibility, all the capabilities in those types of tools. The second is if you're short of IT staff, or if your staff doesn't have the skill set that you'd like everybody to have. In that case, again, process automation brings a big value, and efficiency comes into play. And the third is if you have remote sites. So if you're going to be managing these remote locations, having that visibility and the opportunity to provide guidance to individuals that are at that remote location, again, is going to contribute to quality, reduced downtime, improvement of service, etc.